Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to a look at the nominees for Planet F1's Overtake of the season. Now, I'm joined by Jonty to discuss some of the overtakes selected, and after that, it's all down to you. You can vote by following the link in the description that will take you over to Planet F1, and your 6 nominees are Hamilton's triple overtake in Bahrain, Ricciardo on Bottas in China, Bottas' move on Hartley at Spa, Vettel on Bottas at Silverstone, Hamilton on Vettel in Russia, and Magnussen on Leclerc in Japan. So I think the first one we're going to start with, Jonty, is that move by Ricciardo on Bottas in China. I'm not sure if it's the best move of the season, but it's certainly up there as one of my favourites. Typical Danny Rick.
Oh, absolutely. It was just so last minute, and what we've come to expect from the Honey Badger with his now trademark dive bombs. Just leaving it until the absolute last second is just, that's his trademark now, surely.
What makes that move for me is just how late Bottas moves and how little space he seems to leave Ricciardo, but he just keeps going, doesn't he? He's not giving up on it. It's one of those, look mate, I'm coming through, either give me a little bit more space or we're going to have a crash here. But it's the way he's able to do that with so many drivers. You very rarely see him having contact with somebody that is throwing it up the inside of.
Yeah, exactly. He seems to have some sixth sense for the space of his own car and how much it's going to take up. And he can see instinctively, oh, sorry, Valtteri, you've left the car's width there. So he's going to put it in there no matter what anyone's saying.
It was for the win as well, so it's like sort of a doubly impressive move in that sense, because it's almost double jeopardy, isn't it? But I think, do you think he's the best overtaker on the grid? Because there's been a lot of talk just lately, I don't know what you make of it all, that he is the best overtaker and he feels like he changed overtaking when he came into Formula One.
He certainly added an element of that last minute surprise. He seems to have this gift of braking so much later than other people when there's a move on. And it's caught so many drivers by surprise. We've seen him pull moves where the driver hasn't even defended because he didn't think he was close enough. And that's the change he's brought into it.
It definitely deserves to be on the nomination list, but for the sake of balance, and I have to be fair, he was on fresher tyres, benefited from that safety car massively. And as we saw with his teammate, you've still got to get those moves done, and the chances of collisions when you're throwing it up the inside are very possible.
Yeah, exactly. He is on the fresher tyres. He's got to make the move count. And like you say, it's for the win right at the end of the race. Massive pressure. And he can get those moves done without screwing up. That's the biggest difference.
It's certainly a move that people are going to remember from 2018, but one that, I'm not going to lie, I kind of forgot about was Bottas' move at Eau Rouge. And yes, it was Eau Rouge before he started in the comment section. That move around the outside of Hartley at Eau Rouge was one hell of an overtake. Maybe not up to the standard of, say, Webber and Alonso a few years ago, but certainly worth a mention in this list.
Yeah, it definitely gets a mention. I think, in my opinion, because it was on the outside. Any move on the outside always seems to be a bit braver and a bit more daring. So I'm pretty sure Webber and Alonso, Webber came up the inside. It was really, really fine judgment to get around Hartley that way and to make sure he got the grip, because if you lose it going up that hill, you lose it in a big way.
Do you think we'd look at that overtake in the same way had it been, say, Hamilton or Vettel or Ricciardo? Do you think it's because, as we've said a few times, let's be honest, we don't see that Bottas has that killer instinct, but because he's gone for that move, and it is quite a ballsy move to go for, perhaps we look at that a little bit differently than we would with those that we expect to make that kind of move? I
think there's definitely an element of that. I think we heard it from Brundle on the commentary as well. He seemed quite surprised that it was Bottas going for that move. So it was a nice change to see him being that aggressive, which we had been quite critical of him throughout the year for being a little timid when it comes to attacking. It could well have cost him a race win in Bahrain.
What's also quite interesting about that move is that he could have used that Mercedes power on the straight, so he didn't have to make the move at the end of the day, did he, Jonty? He could have waited till they got to the Kemmel straight and then just breezed past him.
Yeah, that does raise a little question about the thinking in his racecraft. Is it really sensible to go for the move there? Because if it had been a faster car that he was overtaking, possibly something with a Ferrari power or Mercedes power, even in Mercedes, he would have been a sitting duck there on the Kemmel straight coming up to the end. But is that what we want to see? Or do we want to see the drivers really attacking and making these bold, daring moves? It's far more entertaining for us. So I am glad that he made that move, but maybe there's a little question to his racecraft that might need addressing.
I think we all want to see those ballsy moves, don't we? But it's a good point, especially in the era of DRS. If you make that move, you're leaving yourself vulnerable at the end of that straight. Maybe not against a Honda, like you say, maybe against a Ferrari, but still a good move from Bottas. Another one that I really, really like is the Hamilton one on Vettel in Russia. When I've watched a couple of replays back of that this last few days, that move from Vettel on the straight is very, very late.
Yes, very late to the point, in my opinion, of being two moves, but it wasn't called. However, it did give us really tasty racing. Perhaps that was a good call by the stewards to let it go because it really kept them attacking. And what made it so great from Hamilton is that he didn't get dropped so far back because of that move. He still managed to keep very tight on Vettel and keep his boot in all the way around the outside of turn 3, which was just awesome. And Vettel just had no answer to it.
I think building on that point you've just made there, Hamilton's got the title on the line at that point. He doesn't need to take the risks, does he? He could have seen that move from Vettel and gone, well, hang on a second, maybe not. He's a little bit too rough today. He's willing to defend quite hard. Maybe just leave it, sit back and take the points in this one. But he didn't. He just went for it in turn 3. Flat. I mean, I love that corner anyway in Russia. The best bit about that track. All the way around turn 3 and throws it up the inside of 4. Fantastic move. And like I say, he didn't have to get that done.
No, he didn't have to. And I think this was a great example of seeing true hammer time, as they like to call it, because he really was on fire that race. He knew that it was going to be a massive step towards sealing that title. I think that just pushed him that bit further to make the aggressive moves when he needed to. Perhaps the knowledge that he would inherit the lead once he got into second place could have spurred him on a little bit, whatever it is to give us better action on track.
I think it goes back to what you were saying about Bottas and Hartley. We want to see these ballsy moves. We know these drivers think about the World Championship, but at the end of the day, we want to see your Hamiltons, your Vettels, your Verstappens making these moves and not doing the maths in the car. Obviously, it's a huge part of Formula One, and they've got to be calculated in what they do, but we're fans of racing, and we want to see wheel-to-wheel stuff. Yes, aggressive, but fair as well, and I think Vettel was maybe on the edge of what was a little bit unfair, if you like, but I think a really solid move from Hamilton, and solid defense from Vettel, if not a little bit too aggressive, but I do really rate that move, having watched it back a few more times. I mean, all of these overtakes are seriously good. I don't know if I'd make that my move of the season. I've got a feeling we're going to agree on this one, Jonty, but Magnussen around the outside of Leclerc at 130R in Japan, absolutely stunning.
Jaw-dropping. How this wasn't making it to the live broadcast is beyond me. This was some of the best on-track action we've seen all year.
Looking at the onboard from Magnussen, what I really like about this move, Jonty, is how little space Charles Leclerc actually left him. And that's what makes this quite a ballsy move, as well as the fact it's quite a hot-headed driver, if we're being honest, versus a very inexperienced rookie driver. That kind of thing can easily end in an accident. So that's what makes the move just that little bit better for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the comparisons will be obvious between Alonso and Schumacher in 2005, but the points you just made about it being a hot-headed driver around the outside of an inexperienced rookie is quite right. That's what makes it so much more spectacular. If I'm honest, I'd rate it higher than the Alonso for exactly those reasons. And the fact that they're not in the front-running cars. They haven't got the raw downforce and grip that the top cars have. So there's that extra chance that some disaster could happen.
I mean, as we know, and some I'm sure will point out in the comment section, he did go a little bit from hero to zero, though, Magnussen, didn't he, down that straight in Japan. But if we were picking a favourite, you've kind of given it away there. If you were voting on this one, Jonty, is that the move you'd go for?
Absolutely, without question. Close to that would probably be Ricciardo in China, because it was for the win. There was so much more hanging on it, and we all love to see Danny Ric throwing it up the inside. But because they were the guys further back, and to some extent, racing for pride, that's what made the Magnussen move my favourite.
I have to agree. If I'm slapping a vote on this one, it's got to go to Magnussen over Leclerc. But my favourite move of the season was definitely that one, Ricciardo at the inside of Bottas. I loved watching that one. But at the end of the day, it's not up to us. It is up to you guys. You can vote for your favourite overtake of the 2018 season by heading over to Planet F1 via the link in the description. That vote closes on Saturday, December 8th. And we'll be revealing the results together on Monday, December 10th. Now, we will be back tomorrow with the nominees for Best Recovery Drive of the season. But in the meantime, you can follow me over on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.